To the 47 Minutes of Heaven we call the D1Baseball podcast. Regional preview, baby. I am your host, Michael Patrick Rooney III. I am joined by the Minister of Hibiscus, Aaron J. Fitt. Fitzy, I'd like to know how you're doing, and if you could please define the word hibiscus. I don't know what that is.
Some kind of a flower. I think it's some kind of a flower. This was some pre-show chatter. Kendall dropped a hibiscus reference on us.
Kendall's the founder.
So it's that kind of week, guys. So I'm doing Clemson coaching candidates here, and I put Robert Woodard, North Carolina, on the candidates list. So I'm on the struggle bus.
You put Casey Stengel.
Yeah.
Would you get it together?
Weaver.
I put Link Jarrett, UNC Greensboro.
By the way, I just picked up on that a second ago that UNCG is in the Notre Dame Statesboro regional.
How about that?
Yeah, rumor is they're staying in.
Yeah, I was actually looking back.
Bussing in, but
yeah, it's kind of crazy, guys. I was looking back at just different candidates for Clemson, and I don't think people realize when you look at Link Jarrett, what he did at UNCG. His resume there is crazy. He won 38, 36, 39, 35 games at UNCG of all places before he went to Notre Dame.
And two regionals, right? Because you basically have to win that tournament. Is that right, too? Does that sound right?
I think so. I know. I can tell you this. One year, and we always talk about how good of a hitting instructor he is. One year, his Greensboro team led the nation in batting, slugging, and OPS, the triple slash categories.
Yeah, crazy.
I mean, it's just, anyway, yes. It's a good storyline that I had forgotten about. Good point.
Unfortunately, Link is on the 10 most wanted men list as far as in the committee. Somebody I don't know what happened there.
I don't know what he did to somebody, but man, he did something bad.
Yeah, maybe it's Lou Holtz's fault, or I don't know, Notre Dame football jealousy, Fitzy. Who knows what's going on here?
I mean, it's just it seems like, and we don't have to go down a tangent. We've already talked about all this, but it seems like the fact that they have played fewer games than other teams the last 2 years
that's a sticking point.
Is a sticking point with the committee. We have gotten that impression.
They want more data points. So speaking of data points, guys. Tonight's podcast is brought to you by our good friends at S2 Cognition and Wilson. We are excited. Wilson joins us again for the postseason. We got a lot of Wilson swag last year, which was awesome. I don't have any of it left. It's all in my wife's wardrobe, which is even more awesome. So, but we are very, very appreciative of S2 Cognition and Wilson. Boys, shall we preview the bracket? There's going to be a lot of people traveling, flying, driving to airports, and this podcast will be their oxygen. Kendall, you have a question?
Can I, speaking of brackets, can I kind of chime in here? Make sure you, speaking of being powered by Wilson, make sure you go fill out your bracket at the D1Baseball bracket challenge on the site. If you're a D1Baseball subscriber, you can win $10,000. If you're not a D1Baseball subscriber, you can win $5,000. So go check it out. Go put your teams in. I can promise you, I'm looking at my bracket right now. I have a feeling I'm going to fail miserably.
Yes.
That's the spirit.
Yes, but I don't know if you guys saw my tweet, but I think it's going to be great. You fill out your bracket. Here, I'll give you my 4-point plan. Fill out your bracket, win the 10 grand, immediately book a trip to Omaha because money is no object at this point, and then just buy me and Stitchhead adult beverages at the Hilton Omaha bar for the 2 weeks of Omaha. It will be amazing. It will be really fun. So that's what I'm saying. You're right, Ryan Latuso. 10 grand is greater than 5 grand. I love where your head's at.
Hey, can I chime in too at the top of the show instead of at the end when people are already gone? If you're watching on YouTube, mash that like button. Mash that subscribe.
Hit it really
button.
hard.
We'd love it if you subscribed. We have lots of great live shows coming still throughout the postseason. So
yeah, the live shows will really be coming now, I'm assuming, with the postseason. We did a ton of those last year. And that was fun. So, boys, it's great to see your faces. I feel like I haven't talked to your senior in forever. The Nerdcasts have been amazing. But now it's time to talk about the field that was actually assembled. So, are you guys ready? Should we just rip through this?
Go.
Okay. Affirmative. Kendall, let's start with you. So I'm just going to go down the left side of the bracket. We've got the Knoxville Regional, Tennessee, Alabama State, Campbell, Georgia Tech. What say you?
I think the biggest thing for me when I look at this is I'm just more interested to see if Tennessee kind of continues the level of play. I thought it was really interesting in the SEC tournament. There were times where Tennessee was kind of pushed to the brink a little bit. Florida kind of came back on them a little bit late in the championship game. LSU and some others gave them some fits at times in the SEC tournament, and they were able to kind of withstand those pushes. And I thought that was something that I feel like kind of moving in the postseason was big for Tony Vitello's club. I mean, obviously I go with Tennessee, but when you look at the rest of this field, obviously, Coach Vasquez at Alabama State has done a tremendous job to win the SWAC this year. You look at Campbell, Aaron's kind of sleeper. They're a club that, didn't necessarily play great in the conference tournament, but when you have, Thomas Harrington, Kay Kuehler, guys like that, they got a chance to make a run. And then Georgia Tech, I mean, offensively, they match up great with Lindsey Nelson Stadium there in Knoxville. The question for me when you look at Georgia Tech is if they match up with a team like Tennessee, can they slow Tennessee's offense down? That's kind of been the big question mark with Georgia Tech all year long. And if they can do that, they can hang with Tennessee. They can absolutely hang with Tennessee offensively, but the pitching staff is certainly a big question mark. But I think this is going to be an interesting regional, particularly from an offensive standpoint.
Fitzy, what would you pile on there?
I agree. I really think this is not a cakewalk for Tennessee. Clearly they're the team to beat in the entire field of 64, but you've got, I think, a 2 seed that is, as Kendall pointed out, very well suited for this ballpark. It's a home run hitting team, and that's a home run hitter's ballpark. And there's a lot of real juice on that Georgia Tech lineup. And they also got the nation's leading hitter, by the way. I just realized this today. Chandler Simpson leads the country in batting, in addition to being just a dynamic runner, one of the most exciting players out there. Can they pitch enough? Can they defend enough? That remains a little bit of a question mark. But Campbell is got a very balanced offense. They got power and speed. I think there's only 2 teams in the country, or 1 team in the country that can match their combination of home runs and stolen bases. And that's Louisville. And so, Zach Neto, one of the best players in the country, period. At shortstop. And but it's not just him. I mean, they got a lot of really good players. Drake Pearson and Ty Babbins had a good year. Jared Belbin. I mean, they got athletes. They got guys who can run and guys who can hit for power. And so and they've actually got some depth in their bullpen too. I mean, Ty Cummings is a real weapon back there. I mean, they've got power arms. They've got variety. Ryan Chassis on the left side is kind of funky. So I still think they're dangerous. I wish they were sent to a different regional so I could pick them to go to Omaha, because I thought they were an Omaha team. I don't necessarily feel great about their chances in Knoxville, but that is a fun field, if you ask me. I really don't think it's out of the question that either Georgia Tech or Campbell could win this regional. I really think it could happen.
I really think you should pick them.
I don't have this. I don't have the stone.
I want you to pick them so I can @Vol Nation on Twitter and just tell them you pick Campbell.
Fitzy, you finished ahead of me in the picks this year, but I will say that I think there actually is no chance that Tennessee, because Campbell has to burn Harrington. They got to throw Harrington against. Yeah. But I'll tell you, this regional, you guys mentioned it, the star power in this thing. I mean, Thomas Harrington, Zach Neto of Campbell, Chandler Simpson and Kevin Parada 1-2. That's maybe the best 1-2 punch in college baseball at the top of a lineup. And we know Tennessee is full of stars. The atmosphere is going to be amazing in Knoxville. I've rewatched the Drew Gilbert Grand Slam against Wright State. It gives me chills every time, just that atmosphere in Knoxville. This factoid is the one I can't get past. Tennessee led the nation in home runs and ERA. It's not been done since 1996 when LSU did it, the Warren Morris team. And LSU didn't even do it 1-1. They were just like in the top 3 or top 5 in both categories. I might have that factoid a little bit mangled, but either way, that's a joke to lead the country in home runs and ERA. So anyway, the atmosphere will be a blast, though. Boys, let's go to Statesboro, Georgia Southern, UNC Greensboro, Texas Tech, Notre Dame. Fitzy, what say you?
This one, I think most people think it's one of the most competitive fields, regional fields out there in this field of 64. You've got a 2 seed Notre Dame that we all think should have hosted. You've got a 3 seed in Texas Tech that has been, last week they were ranked number 8 in the country, the D1Baseball top 25, and they're a 3 seed. We get it, RPI, whatever else, but talk about a dangerous 3 seed, my goodness. And then you've got UNCG who's really hot and offensive. I was talking with the scout about them last week, who's like, man, like they're rolling right now. I mean, between Press Kavanaugh and
6-1, they went 6-1.
Yeah,
they win the conference tournament. That's like 2 weeks.
They had to beat Wofford twice on the last day. Wofford, I think, can only play twice in the whole tournament, so they're fresh. They just need 1 win. They're the favorite, and Greensboro just rolls through there. And I mean, do they have enough pitching? That's the question mark for Greensboro. But boy, they can really hit. They can really hit there. And there's Georgia Southern is just kind of that fundamentally sound team. Not a lot of star power. If you look at their numbers, you're just like, but they just sum is better to the parts kind of team. I loved what I saw from Notre Dame last week in the ACC tournament. I actually think they have more pitching depth than I expected. Getting the Bedford kid back, I guess he had an academic eligibility for much of the year. But getting him back is a big boost. And it's a good arm, man. I mean, it's like 93, 94
with sink
and a real slide piece. And like, that's, I think, going to be a key factor in this regional is that guy coming back. And I like what I saw from Austin Temple. Obviously you've got John Michael Bertrand. I'm picking the Irish to win this regional. I like how they're playing it. So they take care of the baseball. They don't beat themselves, and they're just a tough team to get outs against, even though maybe there's not as much power here as Texas Tech, but they're just tough to pitch against.
Kendall?
Well, I picked Notre Dame in this regional, but I'll tell you what, I'm going to regret picking against Timmy Tads and Texas Tech. Texas Tech has been so up and down all year long. They're one of those teams that even though when we had them in the top 10, top 12, we're sitting there going like, behind the scenes, we're kind of like, man, we don't think these guys are that good, but yet they're top 10. And I just think when you look at Texas Tech, they're going to have guys step up outside of Brandon Birdsell and Andrew Morris. Those two guys have done some nice things on the mound this year, especially Birdsell. Birdsell's had a great year for Tech, but they need guys to step up in that bullpen to make a run in this regional. That's the only thing that kind of gives me pause. I feel a lot better about Notre Dame in that regard. I think the other thing offensively for them is, they've relied so much on Jace Young, Kurt Wilson. Can the Ty Colemans of the world and guys like that have a big weekend? Hudson White. And then Georgia Southern, we didn't even talk about the host team, but keep an eye on the Sonny DeShera of the Sun Belt and my man Noah Ledford. He's really fun to watch. I watched a couple of their games over the weekend, especially the championship game, and he is just such a presence in that batter's box. He's like one of those guys when he steps into the plate, you're going, okay, well, I'm paying attention. I'm on the edge of my seat now. And so, for Georgia Southern to go on a run, they're going to need him to have a big, big weekend. I'm just curious to see how this regional just kind of pans out. I mean, Georgia Southern hosting for the first time, just the emotions and the pressure of that. Texas Tech, going on the road as a 3-seed. Notre Dame coming off the host sub, or the host snub, excuse me. Like, how do they handle that? Do they channel that into just kind of playing balls to the wall all weekend? It's going to be really interesting.
And if I may chime in here, Kendall hit on something, the first time host situation.
Yeah.
I'm just going to tell you guys, it's not going smoothly so far. There is a hotel shortage. Statesboro is not a big place. As of right now, it sounds like UNC Greensboro has to stay in Savannah and bus back and forth. That's a haul. I don't know if it's an hour or how far it is, but it's unacceptable. And it's something to watch here. I mean, how does that affect? What if there's a rain delay? You got to go back to the hotel. Like, you're going to go back an hour and come in, it's just like, I heard they were offered a chance. They could stay at the dorms, there's no TVs, but you can stay in the dorms, I mean, give me a break. Give me a break.
Yeah, it's a bummer.
It's not good. It's not good.
Yeah, I hate that because it's such a special week. Hey, by the way, Vandy Chris, I see you. So I wasn't angry at all. Like, so here's a TV problem that I have. Like, you're looking at the camera and like, what do? You smile. I don't have a non-smile face that doesn't look like I'm angry. I wasn't angry at all, but it's like, it's not appropriate to smile when the committee chair is talking about teams getting snubbed. So that's bad. My wife tells me that all the time. She's like, man,
what is he talking about? I'm very confused.
Put the question.
So it says, Vandy Chris, he says, Rooney, comma, man, when ESPN asked you about the regionals on the announcement show, you came across as really angry. Do you agree? Take out Ole Miss or DBU, replace with any combo of Iowa, Rutgers, UTSA. I mean, I don't want to rehash that on tonight's show, but I wasn't angry at all. I just terrible at television and didn't know what.
Oh yeah, you're the worst.
So I don't know.
You're so bad at it.
So there you go. Oh gosh,
Runes doesn't get mad. The only place Runes gets mad is at the homeowners association meetings.
That's right. You want to see angry Runes? Come to the Sienna Contest meeting.
I will say this: I had Ole Miss and DBU behind at least Rutgers, UTSA, Wofford, NC State, Old Dominion on my list personally. I will say that.
Yeah. Yep. So, hey, the only thing I'll say about Statesboro, guys, is that Notre Dame and Georgia Southern are they're very similar to me. They're both really fundamentally sound old teams. I think Notre Dame's a little better. You mentioned Jesse Sherrill, Kendall. I love him. 500 on base percentage, basically. I love John Michael Bertrand. This is, if you just love fundamentally sound baseball. Texas Tech is weird. I wish Texas Tech was sent to Knoxville, because if you put a big bad wolf in front of them, they will rise up. Like, they went after Texas and Oklahoma State like their lives depended on it. But then you watch them play other games and they just don't look as fired up. But so I think they would have loved the challenge of Tennessee. Maybe they'll earn it. But yeah, so anyway, very interesting. All right, boys, let's go.
I don't know if we could handle the attitudes of Jace Young versus Drew Gilbert in Knoxville.
Oh my gosh.
Could you imagine that kind of just clash of attitudes?
I would pay per view $200 for that.
Can we just have those two just play one-on-one?
Amen. Let's go. Boys, let's do Austin. Texas, playing Air Force, DBU, La Tech. Kendall, what say you? This is your Republic.
Yeah, so when you look at the Horns, I mean, hey, here's the deal. So Air Force gave Texas all they could handle in the midweek earlier this year. I want to say they blew out Texas in one of the games, and then Texas won the last one in a close game. But, David Pierce, I think the interesting thing about this regional is David Pierce had a tough decision to make. Do you go with Lucas Gordon, one of the two lefties in the opening game against Air Force, and Paul Skeens, or do you go with Pete Hansen? It sounds like he's going with Pete Hansen. So the fact that Air Force is able to force Texas to throw Pete Hansen, if you're Louisiana Tech and DBU, you're over there doing backflips, cartwheels, and God knows what. So, I think could be a game changer in that regional. Keep an eye on Air Force. They can really hit. Coach Kaz has done a great job. And I think when you look at DBU and La Tech, for DBU, it's like, do we get Missouri Valley DBU or do we get non-conference DBU? Like, that's the question for me, is which DBU shows up. They clearly have the talent, but the fact of the matter is they weren't very good at Missouri Valley play on the weekend. So I'm very curious to see which team shows up. La Tech's the team for me that's really interesting here. And here's why. When you look at last year, they were left on the field and rusted against NC State. They know what it feels like to get kind of so close but fall short. They're battle tested. They're old. And when you look at Ryan Jennings, Jonathan Fincher in that rotation, you look at Kyle Krieger on the back end, you look at their offense with Taylor Young and some older players. They're really good. And again, they're battle tested. They just went on a run in the conference tournament. Keep an eye on La Tech. I think they're going to make some noise in this regional, but I like Texas.
I love it. Fitzy.
I'm picking Louisiana Tech for all the reasons you just talked about. I mean, I like that they have so much of the core back from a team that was really good last year, hosted a regional, as we've talked about, maybe that whole experience. Sometimes it's harder to be the host than just go on the road. But now they have postseason experience. They're a mature club that has enough arms. I think they're balanced. I think they're good. They're playing really well at the perfect time. They're hot. And for the reason you stated also, Texas with that tough matchup against Skeens, having to use Hansen, sets up nicely for Louisiana Tech. So I do like the Bulldogs here. Runes, I want to know who you're taking, but also I don't think you made a pick for Statesboro, did you?
Oh, well, our picks are, do you want to do picks now, or because we're going to do our picks on the thing? So let's just do our picks on the thing that way.
Okay, so you don't want us to make picks. All right.
Yeah, let's not worry about making picks. Okay, so let's talk about Austin. If I'm Louisiana Tech, I sneak into the stadium the night before, into Disch-Falk Field, and I'm just going to start plastering Missouri Valley logos all over the dugouts and the locker rooms and the bathrooms. And if you can just convince DBU that it's a Valley game, to your point, Kendall, you're golden. I kid, but it is amazing. Two absolutely Jekyll and Hyde teams, DBU. We had me and Coach Farron on This Week in College Baseball. We taped with Coach Kaz today. Best expression I've ever heard. The Air Force logo is fly, fight, win. I mean, come on. If that doesn't juice you up, I don't know what does. Fly, fight, win. Coach Kaz is the best. I don't know who I'm going to pick in this thing, but you guys are right. Here, I'll just say this about Texas, because I had them at the Big 12 tournament. I think Texas will look like the national champion the first 2 days of this regional, and then it will look very different. They're not confident in game threes of series. Their bullpen has great arm strength, but they really have one strike thrower, and that's the Harrison kid. Even Tristan Stevens will kind of start spraying it a little bit. So anyway, that's
Yeah, I mean, like, Runes, you bring up a great point, man. Like, who does Texas start in a game 3? Like, there's no way it's going to be Zane Morehouse this week.
Yeah,
like, that's not who's starting your game 3 in a regional. So that's a big question mark.
Yep. Fitzy, we can do picks. I think that's fair. I just meant we're doing the picks on social media, not another podcast.
I see what you're seeing. Yeah, well, yeah. Well,
yeah.
Whatever. Kendall, do you have a preference, picks or no picks for this show? I say we give the people.
I'm okay doing picks.
Okay, so I'm going to take Tennessee. I'll take Notre Dame, and I'll take Texas. Okay. I don't know why, but I'm taking Texas.
3 for 3 on Notre Dame and Statesboro. That surprises me.
How about that?
Yeah,
it's just hard to pick against Texas and Austin in a regional.
Yep.
I mean,
it sure is.
Horn's going to horn, right?
Yep. All right, boys, let's do Greenville, East Kakalaki, Coppin State, Coastal Carolina, Virginia. Fitzy, what say you? I
like this one. I think it's very interesting. Obviously, East Carolina's red hot. It's interesting though, because like if you look at the way they've done their pitching, it's really a true committee effort. I mean, I don't know in the conference tournament if anyone went more than 3 innings, any of their starters. They're really cobbling it together, and it's like an unorthodox approach, and it has obviously worked really well. But can that work in the postseason? I mean, we've seen teams take a slightly different approach to their postseason pitching. Certainly, you can remember the opener strategy that Mississippi State used in 2013 when we went to the finals. But you still, in that case, you still had a guy that you would ride for 6 or 7 innings, just out of the bullpen, like Ross Mitchell or whoever. But like ECU is just like full staff, and will that work in the postseason? I mean, it could. I think it's a fascinating experiment. They're playing better teams this weekend than they've played during this 18-game winning streak. It's still, again, they're playing really well. I like the way the offenses come together after a cold start. I like the way they defend. They're the best defensive team here. They take care of the ball. I think, all 3 of those top seeds are pretty offensive. But I think Coastal has the best starting pitching. With Michael Knorr and lefty Reed Van Scoter. That's a really good 1-2 punch. And then, it was a Nick Parker, I think the third guy too. I mean, Virginia's pitching has gone the other way. Savino and Gursky, the lefties were good early, struggled late. This team has not played well down the stretch. Brian O'Connor seemed kind of distraught when they were leaving. Like they got to figure some things out. I still think they're really dangerous offensively. I think they're really talented. I just don't trust their pitching. I think Coastal Carolina is the team that I'm most excited about here as far as just the overall balance of the club.
Kendall, what say you here?
Yeah, first of all, I'm excited that the East Carolina is a top 8 seed. I thought really cool. Cliff Godwin said it perfect yesterday in their media availability that, like, what was it back in, was it 19 or 18 that they felt like they should have been a top 8? 19, they probably should have. Yeah, 19. And he said, it was pretty disheartening when they fell short. And so, to get in the top 8, he felt like this program took a big step forward. Now the next step is winning a regional, winning a super regional, and getting to Omaha. And I think this is a really competitive field. Virginia, I think Aaron hit all the points on Virginia. But, this is a club that had a lot of highs early, some lows, and now I'm really intrigued to see kind of what they bring to the table in this regional. And then Coastal, Coastal, because of the single elimination, didn't make a lot of noise in the Sun Belt tournament. But this is a team that, during the last few weeks of the season, they were kind of like the I'm trying to think of was it Ole Miss, the way they played kind of the last 3 weeks. They were kind of like the Ole Miss of the Sun Belt in the sense that like the last half of the season, they actually played really, really well. I would say the Oklahoma of the Sun Belt. They played really well the last 4 or 5 series. And, Eric Brown was a guy that coming into the year, they had really high hopes for that he would be a premier player. And he's been, terrific for them. I think he's got 34 walks compared to 27 strikeouts. He's got some power in the bat. So, the guys they expected to be stars this year, they were hoping to be stars, have been that this year. So Gary Gilmore's club has the ability, both offensively and on the mound, as Aaron mentioned, not only to get to this regional, but they could get to Omaha.
Yep. I'm with you guys. By the way, how cool is this? East Carolina is hosting for the 4th straight year. I mean, that's really incredible.
That's awesome.
Yeah, what an accomplishment. And, East Carolina's had the worst luck in the world in super regional draws, right? Like at Lubbock, at Louisville, at Rocker Lighter. I mean, like what is that? Like that's just destiny, I guess.
Here's something too with East Carolina, Runes, is I don't want to, knock on wood, you want to jinx somebody, but like, can you imagine the jungle at that place if they have Texas and at East Carolina for a shot to get to Omaha?
Be pretty
I mean,
intense.
that would be absolutely bonkers.
Yeah, hopefully a lot of Uber drivers in the area because we don't need anybody driving home.
Aaron's
from that.
not going to write that weekend. He's just going to do
No.
Uber
There you
driving
go.
over in Greenville.
Where the money is.
Yes, but you guys know, like East Carolina, like just their toughness, like to lose Carson Wisenhunt and then like do this. Like I just love this. You know, I love the toughness of this team. Coastal Carolina, I think you guys are right. They're finally healthy. They're probably the second best team here. Virginia is just young, right? Like this is early for Virginia. Most of this team's back next year. They had to replace 70% of the innings. So the first half was maybe, you know, a little bit camouflaged of just this is a team that's a year away. So I'm going to pick East Carolina there too.
Kendall, who you picking?
Let me go back and see who I picked. I want to say I picked East Carolina.
Can't let Kendall off the hook. He kind of tried to talk.
I know. Well, I know. I forgot who I picked.
That's why we have a Google Drive, and it'll be on social media. Kendall, why don't you blend us into College Station, the Kendall Rogers Regional?
Yeah. So how about that? I mean, I mean, go figure. We get Schloss Bowl 1.0.
Love it.
You know, first of all, had you told me after they lost 2 out of 3 to Pennsylvania, granted the Quakers ended up being pretty good, but had you told me that A&M would lose 2 out of 3 to Wyatt Hensler in the Quakes, and they would host and be a top 6 seed, I probably would have thought you're a little crazy, Runes. I might have admitted you into a hospital somewhere. But you know, this is a team that, you know, the last 2 months of the season's played excellent baseball. They've won 8 out of their last 10 series. They could really hit Dylan Rocks, a big-time power hitter in the middle of that lineup. Trevor Werner, it's kind of unorthodox, right? You got the 6'4", 225 third baseman hitting in your one hole at the SEC tournament. So it's a little unorthodox, but they're really balanced up and down the lineup. Mike Early's done a great job. I think the big key for A&M is, last week at the SEC tournament, their whole goal was to get Micah Dallas back on track. They got him back on track. He shut down Florida's red-hot offense. And so you combine him with Nathan Detmer. I think if you're A&M, you shift Dallas to that ORU game, which ORU's scary with Cade Ditton on the back end of that bullpen. But I think you shift him to that Friday game and see if you can make that work. Because if there's one thing if there's one kind of, opening in the armor with A&M, it's the back end of that weekend rotation. I think when you look at the rest of this field, TCU, I think TCU is going to have a little bit of Notre Dame feeling here. Like I think they're going to come into this regional a little hot. I mean, you're talking about the Big 12 champ for the first time not hosting a regional. And I think TCU is going to come in here with something to prove. I don't think they're going to have like a Schlossnagle motivation, but I think, going on the road to A&M, a rival, and playing against Schloss, they're really going to want to win that. So I think TCU is going to play well. And then you look at Louisiana. This is a team that could absolutely play spoiler in this entire thing. If you guys remember back in the fall, when we did fall podcast, I thought they were going to be really good this year. I thought this was a top 25 caliber club. They did not play like it the first 75% of the season. They played really well in Montgomery, and Will Veillon was very good offensively in the Sun Belt tournament. And we'll see how they play at College Station. But keep an eye on Louisiana. This is a team that has plenty of talent.
Fitzy.
Yeah, Kendall breaks it down very well. I think it's a very intriguing field here. I mean, Oral Roberts too. Definitely a frisky 4-seed team.
Legend Smith, the legend of Legend Smith.
Right. I mean, he could give them all they can handle there. I like TCU. I just think the way that I think they probably are a better defensive team than A&M, Kendall.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay, so I mean that's part of it. Is that I feel like in the regionals you want teams to take care of the baseball. I like their pitching, the way it sets up. It feels like Marcelo Perez is pitching well at the right time. Certainly Brett Walker. And there's some X factors here, like in the bullpen. I mean, I saw Austin Crowe. It looked like he pitched pretty well against Oklahoma State in the conference tournament. I mean, I feel like he's kind of an X factor guy. What are they going to get out of Wally Cornelia? But like they have a lot of stuff there, and I just I like the athleticism in the lineup, and I agree with you. I think they have a chip on their shoulders, and I don't know, just kind of a gut feeling thing here. I have a feeling about the Frogs.
This is interesting because I'm looking up Louisiana. Like I've just been under this assumption that Louisiana is maybe a couple years away under Matt Deggs, but they've got I think they've got 6 guys with double-digit steals, and I've heard Carson Rockefort is really an elite player, could be a Team USA guy this summer. I think Oral Roberts is a very difficult floor for A&M. Here's the one thing that's top of mind for me in this deal, guys, is that A&M has really good left-handed relievers, if I'm not mistaken, or they've got left-handed relievers. I'm thinking about Jacob Palish. I'm thinking about Moo Menifee, and that's been an Achilles heel for TCU. Is they have not handled left-handed pitching well. So even though I thought A&M was a team that might end up losing a home regional, I'm going to pick A&M for whatever reason. Kendall, what do you think? Am I misdiagnosing A&M's left-handedness?
Yeah, I mean, I'm picking A&M for the simple fact that they've just been so good offensively over the last 2 months of the season. I mean, they're so good offensively at home. South Carolina, and the thing about their offense too is it's kind of hard to deliver the knockout punch against them. Alabama. I mean, for crying out loud, Alabama, A&M had 5 errors against Alabama. Alabama was up 6-1 in the 6th, and A&M won 11-6. Like, they can strike that quick. South Carolina, Mississippi State had 6, 7, 8 run leads over A&M. A&M just wiped those out in a matter of a couple of innings. So they can just strike so fast. I think when you, especially, let's just say a team can force them to a 4th game, like, they're going to just wipe out somebody's 4th pitcher.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why I picked them.
Dylan Rock's the kid from UTSA, right? He's transferred from UTSA. Got it.
Really
Fitzy, why don't you give us Louisville?
Yeah, we got an offensive regional here. Obviously, the Cardinals. I was talking about earlier with Campbell, just the balance of power and speed. I mean, this is like a vintage Dan McDonnell offense. He's had some really good ones over the years that can beat you in a variety of different ways. And I was actually talking with somebody for Louisville about just about Coach Eric Snyder's philosophy. Like, there's certain benchmarks that you want to hit, a certain number of walk to strikeout, a certain number of stolen bases, a certain number of, extra bases, whatever. Like, he's got this whole formula, and this team basically checks all the boxes. I mean, that they're really balanced, and boy, Dylan Rushing's had a monster year, 21 home runs. It's just, guy's built like a tank, and he's got enormous power. It plays to all fields. A key for them is Christian Knapczyk. Will he be completely healthy? He's kind of working his way back from an ankle deal.
Did he play in Charlotte, Fitzy?
He got a pinch hit at bat, I think, and I think that's it toward the end. So he's close. But they're deep enough that, they got this kid Noah Smith, this freshman they played at short, who I like. I think he's going to be a really good player, and he looked fine there. So they've got depth, but I just think it's an offensive team. We've talked about Oregon's offense before, just their depth and athleticism and their balance and their power. And again, it's a team I really like how they swing the bats. I don't know if I trust their pitching. I do think that Louisville, at least you've got a real dude with Jared Poland. I just think that's a little bit of a separator. Now, I don't know if they're going to throw him against SEMO or not, because that's one that could maybe jump up and get you.
It.
Yeah, it's one that could jump up and get you, because SEMO is again, can swing the bats. This is it's an offensive program. They're always a team that can scare you a little bit offensively, and this year, no exception. Can you believe Tyler Wilbur is still there, putting up numbers for like the 7th year in a row? It's kind of nuts. I feel like the guy's been around forever.
I love it.
Got 18 home runs, hitting 330. Like, Andrew Keck having a huge year, 17 bombs. It seems got real power also. So, Michigan is the X factor, coming in off this kind of disappointing season, but they play well at the right time. They win the conference tournament. I don't really know what to expect from those guys, but kind of, what's your take on this Louisville field?
Yeah, my take with Louisville and Oregon is if those two teams play, there's going to be a lot of offense. When you look at that Oregon offense, that Louisville offense. The thing about Michigan is I could see them going on. We know they have talent, right? So I could see them going on a run. But the fact that they don't have a veteran pitcher in Willie Weiss, Willie Weiss is out 4 games with that suspension. Yes, he has suspended 4 games. So you're talking about a guy who's got 22 appearances, has been one of your key arms this year, and you don't have him in a regional. So, and I think that's a big loss for them.
Yeah, boys, I think you mentioned it, Fitzy. Like, SEMO's a bear of a 4 seed. Back-to-back regionals. They won't be nervous. I texted Andy Sawyer's, congrats. And I said, hey, what's the strength of your club? Here's what he texted me. We've hit 95 home runs, and these kids are tougher than woodpecker lips. So thank you for that. I didn't ask Coach Sawyers if I could use that, so I apologize if you didn't want me to say that.
That's totally something Andy Sawyers would say.
Oh, it's so great. So great. But I agree with it. They hit a bunch of home runs, and I love the way they play. And Oregon, guys, is like Louisville's West Coast doppelganger. Like these really athletic look the part position player groups where it kind of plays on both sides of the baseball. And the pitching is dicey. Now, I will say what's interesting, whereas Louisville's got Poland and then Persecki and then a lot of questions in the middle, Oregon has just loaded up on the back end. You look about they've got 3 relievers: Logan Mercado, Rio Britton, Colby Summers, who, and actually I'll put Christian Ciuffatelli in there. That's 4 relievers with over 21 appearances and all ERAs under 3.
Yep.
So Oregon's going full blown, opener. So anyway, to your point, Kendall, 2 fun position player groups.
Who do you guys like here?
Louisville. I picked Louisville to Omaha, so I got to go Louisville.
Me too. And also, I think one thing that struck me in the ACC tournament is they actually have a lot of good arms. It's just a matter of, are they going to find the right combinations at the right times? But I mean, like even just the 2 games they played, saw a lot of guys with stuff. And so I believe that Raj is going to figure it out.
Big Raj. Kendall, who'd you pick in this?
I'll pick Louisville.
Okay, very good. Hey, let's go to Gainesville, boys. Florida, Central Michigan, fire up chips. Liberty, Oklahoma. Kendall, you're up. What do you say here?
Well, the good news for Florida is they're hosting. The bad news for Florida is they've got a crazy hard regional. I just think when you look at this regional overall with, the job that Jordan Bishel's done at CMU, what an incredible run. 3 straight full seasons in the last 3 full seasons, 3 straight years of getting to the NCAA postseason. When you look at Andrew Taylor and their pitching, they're in really good shape there. I think when you look at Liberty, for Florida to draw Liberty, a team that took a series from them in Gainesville earlier this year, that's going to be really difficult. And then when you look at Oklahoma, I mean, that is my Omaha sleeper. A spoiler alert, I have Oklahoma as my bracket runner-up in Omaha with Tennessee being the winner. So, deep down, I'm kind of hoping the Sooners play well. But, when you look at Oklahoma, the thing I really like about them, Runes, and you saw the Big 12 tournament, you were there, the thing I really like about OU is in a regional format, if your number 4 guy is Cade Horton, I like your chances a lot. Like, I like your matchup from a pitching standpoint. So I just really like OU's depth on the mound, and I like what they've done offensively, whether it's Peyton Graham, Tanner Treadaway, Blake Robertson, Jimmy Crooks. Their offense has steadily gotten better and better and better as the season progressed. So I actually picked Oklahoma to win this regional. I hate to go against Florida, but I really, really like where OU's at. And kind of like we talked about earlier with Notre Dame and Aaron with TCU, Oklahoma feels like they should host. And I think they're going to go on the road with something to prove here.
Yep. Fitzy, what are you thinking here?
I agree with my esteemed colleague here as well. A couple of things give me pause about Florida. One, they played how many games in Hoover, Kendall? They played a lot of games there, didn't they?
Yeah, they played
5.
5, yeah.
I mean, a little bit of a grind the week right before a regional. And now you get Andrew Taylor, and it's just like, it just doesn't feel like that's setting up ideally for him. I'd much rather than be a little fresher heading into this thing and not have to face a real ace, like an All-American caliber ace for a team that has played well in regionals before. I mean, Central Michigan's, they could, as good as all these teams are, Central Michigan, would it shock you if they won this regional? I mean, I think they got a chance, so that's for starters, that gives me pause with Florida. I think Liberty's the team that probably we're all sleeping on a little bit.
Yeah.
I mean, a team that has gone to back-to-back regional finals. There's a lot of experience here, guys that have played in the postseason. They always take care of the baseball. It's just like they're the defining characteristic of this program is they're just a fundamentally sound club. They don't beat themselves. They don't give you a lot of free bases. They got guys that work counts and grind out at bats, and there's some power in there. Mr. Wonderful, is it Derek?
Mr.
Warndorf?
Wonderful, yes.
Cooled off quite a bit since that tour started.
Yes,
but you know what? He's still a good player. He's got power. Brady Gulikowski, also. There's a few guys like that. I think Liberty's frisky, and certainly it's a deep pitching staff. We know that, but ultimately. It's funny when you look at Oklahoma, like their pitching numbers, it's like the ERAs are like, I don't know, but the talent is there. You watch them pitch, it's like, they got stuff.
The stats are deceiving.
Yeah. Sandlin,
hey, Aaron, I was going to ask you.
Yeah.
Do you know the status of Garrett Horn? He hasn't pitched in like 2.5 weeks. That's a kind of a key thing in this regional, I feel like.
Really good question. And something that we need to look into because you're right.
I think it's been 2.5 weeks since he pitched.
It's been a little while. So, yeah, and he's a very talented freshman, like big power, mid-90s guy. That it would be nice if he's healthy. We'll have to make an inquiry there. But I like Oklahoma. I just they feel like the Big 12's North Carolina. They're just really, really coming together at the perfect time.
Yep. I'm with you boys. Like, this takes me back to 2012, Kent State, Stony Brook. What were the commonalities? Mid-majors who had been to a bunch of regionals in a row. Stony Brook had been to 3 out of 5 years. So the kids know how to play in a regional. There's not that anxiety. Central Michigan, 3rd straight regional. And they've won a game in each of those. They won 2 games last year. Liberty, I think you said, Fitzy, 3 straight regionals. Oklahoma's the only team, but just the difference is Florida's so young. Wyatt Langford, such a great story, had 4 at-bats this year and almost won SEC Player of the Year this year. Peyton Graham, you guys heard me talking about. Peyton Graham's got 16 home runs and 30 steals. I mean, that's crazy. And he's playing legit shortstop. Oklahoma, Oklahoma's improved as much as any team in the country from February to May. And so I'm going to pick Oklahoma. I'm going to pick OU. I'll go there. Jake Bennett the other night in the Big 12 tournament, boys, was
stuff's really
nasty.
He's really come on. Garrett Horn, I'm seeing a headline here, not expected to pitch for the 4th week in a row with an undisclosed injury.
Fitzy, why don't you take us right to Virginia Tech?
Fun regional here. I mean, you were just talking about kind of that Central Michigan profile, that Liberty profile, the team that's in regionals every year. That's Wright State. Wright
Mr.
State
Christ.
is just their fixture. They're a fixture in this event, and they're always dangerous. I mean, last year they gave the Vols all they could handle in Knoxville. And it's a team that, once again, you've got power. You've got guys that can hit. I mean, it was Alex Sayre. The kids had I don't know if I'm saying that right, but I think it's Sayre, had a fantastic season for him. And, Gary Ganglin, I mean, you got some thump here. There's a team that feels like they can hold their own in this offensive setting. This is another offensive ballpark. We've got a lot of these here in this field. But Virginia Tech is, I think, a buzzsaw, certainly offensively. And as we've talked about a bunch, they also play great defense. I love that. They're not just a bunch of butchers out there. Do they have enough arms? I mean, if they can stay in the winner's bracket, I think they do. And if they fall into loser's bracket, they can mash their way through.
Yep.
Gonzaga, though, it's just a contrast in styles, right? Like, it's a pitching and defense team with really good arms, with a first rounder at the top. I mean, Roots, do you save? I don't know if you've seen what they're going to do. Do you save Gabe Hughes, or do you just go ahead and try to throw him against Columbia in that first game?
I don't know. Like, David Esker is like the coach I think of when I think of throwing off nowadays. And him and Mark Mactoff both played for 9 at Stanford. So that's interesting. I'm picking the Zags because we just have to. I mean, like, they're pitching and Danny Evans. I'm going with the sentimental pick. Wright State could mangle this whole thing up. They almost mangled up Tennessee's Omaha run last year. But you're right, Fitzy. This is no slight on Virginia Tech. They have an awesome team. But, they're not a first-time host, but these kids and these coaches are first-time hosts. So that's different. But, give me the Zags. What are you thinking here, Kendall?
I'll take Virginia Tech, but I'll tell you what, keeping on Brett Baretti's Lions of Columbia, Aaron made a great point about English Field and the fact that it's a big-time hitter's paradise. How about this? Hayden Schott, Andy Blake, and Josh Solomon for the Lions all have double-digit home runs. They're hitting over 303 as a team there at Columbia. So keep an eye on those guys offensively in that first game against Gonzaga. It's a tough matchup going against Gabe Hughes and company, but, man, they can really hit.
Love it. Kendall, let's stay with you. Take us to the other side of the bracket. Let's do Stanford.
Well, the bad news, the good news for Texas State is they were able to get out of the Lone Star State and get away from Texas and Texas A&M. The bad news, they got to face Stanford potentially. Mm-hmm. And I think when you look at Stanford, outside of Tennessee, they're playing the best baseball in the country, I think. I just think when you look at their, watch them in the Pac-12 championship game the other night, they were crushing the ball. Braden Montgomery, he launched some balls early this year at UCLA in a game I watched. He looked good in Round Rock, but, man, that guy's gotten more consistent offensively. Brock Jones, when I saw him earlier this year, he was hitting about 210 the 4th week of the season. He's now well over 300 with well over 10 bombs. He's been ultra consistent. And I think when you combine that with just having a frontline ace like Alex Williams, they're probably going to be able to save Alex for the second game and not have to throw him against Binghamton. And just having a veteran, hard-nosed guy like Alex Williams in that second game is such an X factor for Stanford. And so even if they don't have a great offensive game, he has a strong argument, guys. I'm assuming it was Jerpy that won it, but he would have a strong argument to have won Pac-12 Pitcher of the Year. His numbers were that good in that league. And so, UC Santa Barbara, Andrew Chekets, watch, rinse, repeat. They're back in the postseason. You know what, guys? I'm actually really curious to see UCSB in this regional, because outside of midweek games and outside of one series early in the year in non-conference play, we don't really know a lot about these guys. Why? Because they played in a league where 90% of the teams were awful. Outside of Cal Poly and UC Irvine, that was not a very good league, to say the least. And so I had no idea what to expect from the Gauchos, So that's going to be interesting to me. And then Texas State, offensively, they're really old. They're really balanced. Pitching-wise, they have some really nice pieces on the front end. Tristan Stivers on the back end is a really nice piece. But I'll say this about Texas State. The one thing that alarms me a little bit about these guys, if you go back and look at the Georgia Southern series, if you go back and look at some of their other series, in the games 2 and 3 on the weekend, on the back end of the bullpen, they've had issues shutting teams down those 8th and 9th innings, and they're going to have to shore that up this weekend if they want to win that regional.
Fitzy, what are you thinking here?
Guys, we've talked a lot about East Carolina and that 18-game winning streak. Stanford has won, 16 in a row against the Pac. I mean, most of those games against the Pac-12. I mean, it's a different level right there. It's the way this pitching staff has come together, to me, is so impressive, because we were concerned about that early in the year. I mean, I know I was concerned. I didn't think they had enough arms. And Bruins, this burns me. This burns me up. I gotta admit defeat on the Pac-12 bet. I said the Beavers were going to win the league. All year long, I was feeling so smug. I was like, look at me. I'm in the catbird seat. I got this one. Stanford winds up edging them in both the regular season and the conference tournament. Tip of the cap to you. The Cardinal was the right pick. But Stanford is awesome. I mean, really, I'm totally converted here. Obviously, we always liked the offense, had high hopes, but just the way they're pitching. I mean, with Quinn Matthews at the back end, giving them stability there, and I think Joey Dixon, of course, behind Alex Williams. I mean, I feel like I've got some peace of mind here with this team. So I do think it's a neat field. I mean, Binghamton, it feels like, is a softer 4, and I know the committee was consciously trying to reward the top seeds with softer 4s. They thought it was that those teams had earned it, and so who knows? But you would think Stanford will be able to pitch off in that first game, and then sets up pretty well for them. But because I think the Gauchos and Bobcats are both good, both dangerous. I mean, it wouldn't shock me for either one of those teams to win it, but boy, I just think Stanford's awesome, and I'm taking them.
Yeah, and I was trying to find Shotgun, our boy Shotgun Spratling, had a really cool tweet about Stanford over the weekend where they started out. It was not a great start to the season for Stanford, but they're 32-6 in their last 38 games. To your point, I mean, just against really good competition. Here's the thing about Stanford, guys. They're the losers bracket might not be good for them. That's not pitching depth is not Stanford's jam, but they could overwhelm the losers bracket with offense. Santa Barbara's been to Stanford's regional before, so that's interesting. Texas State is very old. I don't think they're going to be spooked either. Binghamton, by the way, has got a $60 million baseball stadium, which is really awesome.
Awesome.
But that's not going to help them score any runs in this regional. So give me the Cardinal, but very interesting. Fitzy, how about Maryland, Long Island, UConn, Wake Forest? What say you?
Yeah, this one's fun. I think our boy Shotgun's going to be there for this one now that he's Mid-Atlantic man, New Jersey's own Shotgun Spratling. Once again, it feels like Maryland. I mean, I guess they could do whatever they want with their pitching because they've got a couple of different guys that they can run out there. They got 3 guys that they feel good about in the rotation with Savacool and Ramsey and Dean. I wonder about the first time host hoopla here, especially where how smoothly is it all going to go? With that facility. It makes me a little nervous about Maryland. Also, their bullpen makes me a little nervous. They're a really offensive club. They can score runs. This is an offensive park, which I feel like plays right into Wake Forest's hands. and then you've got UConn, just kind of that hard-nosed blue-collar team. I love that first matchup with Brett Lauder against Austin Peterson.
Mm-hmm.
I think UConn won 46 games, after losing like a potential number 1 overall pick to injury before the season started. Like, that's bonkers, man.
Yep.
Like, what an awesome year. Those guys, they're tough. But I told Kendall I wasn't going to fall for it.
You fell for it, didn't you?
But when it came down to it, when I was analyzing this field, I like the Deeks. They just, they looked good last week. I mean, I thought Teddy McGraw looked great, which was very encouraging for me. Lauder, of course, is a dude. I mean, it's a great matchup with Austin Peterson in that first matchup against UConn. Two guys who can really pitch, can really spin it. And I think this ballpark plays to Wake Forest strengths, certainly a home run hitting team. So, and they don't have to worry about any pressures of hosting. They can just, I feel like, go up there and play loose and easy. And the Corey Muscara Bowl, I think Wake Forest takes it.
Moose, what are you thinking here, Kendall?
Can I admit something that I can't believe I'm admitting?
Oh.
I picked Wake Forest too.
We're here for you.
Look out!
Whoa!
I picked Wake Forest. Tell you what, though,
goodness.
keep an eye on UConn. Keep an eye on UConn. This is a team that, a little bit like UCSB, like they're a team that did some nice things in non-conference play. They weren't in a very good league this year. They lost a couple of games on the stretch that kind of I would say deflated their RPI a little bit more than it probably should have.
Got swept by Georgetown.
Yes.
The last weekend of the regular season.
Yeah.
And Georgetown was much improved this year. Don't give them credit, but that was a shock.
Thompson.
This isn't your grandpa's Georgetown, Aaron.
That's right.
No.
Austin Peterson's done a really nice job on the mound for them. He'll go against Brett Lauder in that first game. That'll be a fantastic matchup. But don't doubt Jim Penders and Josh McDonald and the boys too. I think that's going to be a really good regional. Though I think Maryland, UConn, or Wake Forest will win that regional.
So Maryland is going to be my pick. I think the atmosphere there is going to be nuts. Kind of reminds me of like old school Packard Stadium at ASU, where it's kind of a dump, but it's like people on the field. It's very intimidating. I wonder how good the lighting's going to be. But here's the thing about Maryland: they were regional finalists last year. So it's not like they're going to be totally spooked by this thing. I mean, hosting is different. I'll give you that. But and hey, Long Island's got a really good number 1, Josh Loshorn, who was 11-2 NEC Pitcher of the Year. So that could get interesting. But I'm going to pick Maryland. I agree, though, guys. This is, it's not like UConn's going to be intimidated by the environment. That's a really tough program. I don't think Wake Forest is going to be intimidated by it either. So, but give me the Terps. Give me the Dirty Terps. Kendall, how about actually Fitzy? Let's switch to the order. You do Chapel Hill, Fitzy. We got North Carolina, Hofstra, VCU, Georgia. What say you, Aaron J. Fitt?
You're just trying to get me to pick against my Bulldogs. I see what's happening here.
I can't wait to see this.
This is a tough bracket for you. Get my popcorn ready.
It's a tough bracket for me because Georgia has played like garbage down the stretch. And this is a team that I guaranteed would be in Omaha. I'll say it. I mean, I'm not going to back down. I guaranteed that in the preseason, and I stuck with it for a lot of
You guaranteed it a week ago.
Well, I mean, that's a private correspondence.
Chris from Louisville.
North Carolina's hotter than I don't know, hotter than Hades. I mean, they're hot.
That's a good one. That's a good saying.
Yeah,
they're hot. And what I like is that they're finally getting length out of their starting pitching, which they hadn't for a lot of the season. But now it's like Max Carlson and Brandon Schaefer have grown into those roles. Against Hofstra, a first-time, regional participant in the program history. I mean, Frank Calada's done an awesome job. They've got a number 1 starter who's going to, compete. 3-pitch guy, 88 to 90, but it's North Carolina is so dangerous offensively right now. It's like they just tore through the ACC tournament. Everyone they played. It's a scary offense. I would expect. I don't know if North Carolina's going to throw Schaefer in that first game. I know they're probably not going to throw Carlson because he just threw Sunday on short rest. But I mean, they could save both those guys theoretically and really be set up. They have a very good bullpen and great offense. I mean, I don't know what Georgia's going to do. Like, do you roll the dice? Do you save Cannon for game 2? Maybe that's your best chance to win the regional. I mean,
that doesn't seem like Scott Strickland, though, does it? Like he's like a, like just play it straight up guy to me.
Especially since VCU is dangerous. They're hot. Yeah. They're offensive. I mean, you got the best Well, I don't know if he's the best hitter this regional, but Tyler Locklear is really good. I mean, I don't know if it's Vance Honeycutter or Tyler Locklear or what, but they're an offensive team also, and they're no strangers to regionals. VCU is certainly. I don't think you can look past them. I guess you got to throw Cannon in that first game, so it just feels like it sets up really well for the Tar Heels. So I got to take Tar Heels.
Kendall.
Yeah, how about this with Tyler Locklear? He's hitting 403 with 19 homers and 75 RBIs, 41 walks, and a 540 OBP, fellas. Those are fantastic numbers.
Good at baseball.
Kind of a slow start, too, and then he just really got it going.
Yeah, Sean Silver does a tremendous job there. I think if it's anybody but North Carolina, though, it's going to be Georgia. Georgia's one of those teams that, injuries on the mound earlier this year really crippled them. To give Aaron some credit and kind of get us off his back a little bit, he predicted them to get to Omaha back when it looked like they might be healthy, and they had some pieces that could have
Dylan Ross and Will Childers would have totally changed that team.
There's no doubt. So the big key for Georgia is, can they get Liam Sullivan and guys like that to throw really well in this regional outside of Jonathan Cannon, to be determined. But I just think North Carolina, just the way they're playing. The thing I like about them is they're not just winning a bunch of games. They're absolutely annihilating people. And I think there's a difference. I think there's a difference between a team getting hot and kind of, they hit a walk-off, or won a game by 1 run 5 straight games. No, they're just wearing people out. And I think that's very telling, and I think they're going to continue to play really well this weekend.
So Chris from Louisville, I can hear him asking Fitzy that Georgia was your lock for Omaha, but you don't have them coming out of the regional. So it's going to be tough for Georgia to get to Omaha when they get eliminated in their regional. Go ahead.
Here's the thing you got to consider is that they'd be matched up with my national championship pick, Oklahoma State, in the Super. So it's a lose-lose for me. It's not my fault. It's not your fault. It's the bracket's fault. So, I might as well just take the Tar Heels.
Get Mike Buddy on the line. Boys, I'm picking Georgia. You're right. They lost 5 out of 6 series down the stretch, but never got swept. It's an old team. They've had so much bad luck in the postseason. I feel like it's time for them to get some good luck. And North Carolina has some older guys, Soretti, Zarate. How do you say that kid? Mikey Madej. Mikey Madej. But they also have a lot of young players. And now those kids were in the regional last year. I don't know. I'm picking the old team. I'm picking Georgia, feeling froggy. Give me the Bulldogs. I think that's a gettable regional for them.
You're trying to elbow your way in here on some of my credit when Georgia goes to Omaha. I see what you're doing.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Called hedging. Kendall, what do you got on Stillwater? Oklahoma State, Missouri State, Grand Canyon, Arkansas.
Yeah, this is another really fun regional. You look at Oklahoma State. The big question mark with Oklahoma State, we all know the good pieces of Oklahoma State, but the big question mark for me when I look at OSU is just the status of Bryce Osmond. It sounds like he will not pitch this weekend. He may be out next weekend as well. They're hoping that they can get to Omaha, they can be available then. But it sounds like he's out. And so without him, whether it's Victor Medeiros, Ryan Bogus, you saw the Big 12, Bogus, you saw the Big 12 tournament. He stepped up and threw really well for him. So for them to win this regional, they're going to need guys like him to throw really well again this week without Osmond in that weekend rotation. Missouri State, certainly very familiar with the Pokes, very familiar with the Razorbacks. They have history with Arkansas, if you remember back in the rain game a few years ago. And so, they would love to knock one of those two teams out. I think Arkansas, the $1 million question is which Arkansas team shows up. So there have been times this year where, the Auburn series, for instance, when, Bob Moore, Caden Wallace hit, very clutch hits against Auburn. You're thinking here comes Arkansas. Here comes Arkansas. They're back to normal. Then all of a sudden the next week they go back to their old ways. And so I think for me, when I look at Arkansas, I did not like its body language at the SEC tournament. And so I'm curious to see which team shows up. Does Connor Nolan continue to struggle, or does he get back on track? So many question marks at Arkansas. Then I think GCU, if there's a team that could potentially spoil everybody's party, it's GCU. I didn't think they would get in. I'm actually glad they got in. I think when you're a WAC team and you go out and play Oregon State, you go out and play Texas Tech, you go out and play ASU, Arizona,
Stanford.
Stanford. They made a point to go out and play good teams in non-conference
and beat
they dominated their league.
Mm-hmm.
New Mexico State got in by winning the auto bid. They finished 12 games ahead of New Mexico State in the conference standings. So I'm glad they're in. And
I think it was 15 games, by the way.
Yeah, it was a lot.
Crazy.
Yeah, exactly. But keep an eye on Jacob Wilson. You can talk about him. You've seen him so many times this year. But GCU's dangerous.
Yep. Fitzy?
I do like. I totally agree with you. I'm glad they got in. It's like complain about what you want. Like we didn't project them to get in, I don't think, because we didn't think the committee
No.
would give the WAC the respect. Historically, it's the kind of team that doesn't get
Mhm.
it. And so we were like trying to anticipate what the committee would do. We thought, well, we thought they deserved to get in and wouldn't. And so I'm just pleasantly surprised that they're in, frankly.
Me too.
Guys, Oklahoma State. Okay, let's have a conversation about Oklahoma State.
Are you backing off?
No, I'm not backing
Okay.
off. Hell no. Oklahoma State is they're about to make a big run here.
Okay.
I don't even think they need Osmond right now. I mean, I'm with you. Like if they get him back at some point, that's nice. I was actually kind of encouraged by the way Victor Medeiros pitched in the loss to Texas in the conference tournament. It was 6 innings, like 2 earned runs. I mean, like that's a key guy for me. Like he could be like the Griff McGarry type guy, just a big power arm that just it clicks at the right time. It'd be a game changer for them. Huey Morrill. It seems like they kind of found something with that guy this year on the mound. I mean, it's pretty live stuff. He's got a lot of life on that fastball. I don't know. I like the depth and variety of the pitching staff. I mean, it's somebody in our comments said that they're gritty. I agree. I think they're gritty. Yep. I think that they're pretty balanced. They have some power. There's a lot of guys who draw walks, and it's just kind of a sum is better than the parts team, but they have some pretty darn good parts too. So I like the Cowboys. I said a bunch in the fall, like Arkansas and Oklahoma State were the two best teams I saw in the fall. Like on my travels, I saw both of those teams scrimmage twice, and they both I was like, oh, these both feel like Omaha teams, and they won't be because they're in the same regional. But Arkansas, I still think is dangerous, but I agree with Kendall. Like it's very weird Jekyll and Hyde team right now, and I don't love where they're at this particular moment.
Yeah, Arkansas is interesting because I think they're going to really like this park. It's such a homer dome that Arkansas's offense, I think, will like this. But Grand Canyon is a tough first draw. We know they're good and talented. I agree with everything you guys said there. And I'll tell you guys, at the Big 12 tournament, Oklahoma State did not get to the finals, but they had a very therapeutic week. Justin Campbell, who had struggled down the stretch, was outstanding. Ryan Bogus, I think, is a real find. If I'm Josh Holiday and Rob Walton, I'm going Campbell, Bogus, Medeiros. I trust Bogus more than Medeiros. Stuff's not as good, but Bogus is slider all day long, anytime you want. Bogus is an absolute Rob Walton special. Sinker, slider, sinker, slider, sinker, slider, pitch backwards, compete in the zone. You're going to have to really just put hits together, and it allows Trevor Martin to go back to the bullpen where he's throwing 98-mile-an-hour BBs. It gives them more depth in the bullpen. Bryce Osmond would be better. Griffin Dorshin, guys, they're so different when he's in there. They're so different. He's such a threat at all times. You always know where he is in the order. Kendall, you mentioned Rock Riggio. He's really, he's not a freshman anymore. He's playing unbelievable defense. I'm all in on Oklahoma State. I thought the things that ailed them, I thought that they really patched those things up at Globe Life. And they didn't win the tournament, but man, they look lethal coming into this thing.
Runes, how did Zach Gerhardt look in the tournament?
Well, it's interesting. He came out of the final game with a little look like a tweaked leg, but he was excellent. The at-bats were tremendous. Line drives up the middle, line drives the other way, run the bases, play good defense. He's hitting like 330. Like his numbers
are
a
fun player when I saw him against Texas.
Yeah. Their problem is you get down to Noel McLean, who's a great competitor, but he's going to be at 100 strikeouts. And so he still runs into balls, but he's just a strikeout waiting for a place to happen. So that part of the order, they could use more production from Mendham, McLean. But I like the overall offense. I just like the team. I think they're ready for a run.
All right.
So there you go.
Welcome to the bandwagon, Roots.
Yes, I'm on. Fitzy, let's give you Coral Gables, Miami, Canisius, Old Miss, Arizona. So it's Miami and the Golden Griffins, and then we're going to run back the Tucson Super Regional on the other side there.
Yeah, how about that? Yeah, Arizona, Ole Miss, Tucson Super last year. You would think, pretty offensive matchup there. Miami is an enigma to me because, I saw them twice last week at the ACC tournament. They didn't play well at all. And, they're running out guy after guy with big stuff, velocity.
Mm-hmm.
Like I was going through my notes today to find guys for the heat sheet for David Seifert. And it's like, they had like, Alex McFarland throwing 98 and, Walters 98 and Rosario 97. And I'm like, Torres 97, like all these guys with huge velocity. And of course you got Palmquist and you got dudes and like, they're getting teed up. And Gino DiMare said afterwards that he's just frustrated that like, if we can't locate our fastballs inside, that's something we got to figure out fast. And it's like as much stuff as they got. And I've been looking for teams that have arms because I want to ride the teams that have pitching because there's not a lot of it around. Like everybody's hitting 1,000 home runs and nobody's got arms, and they have real arms, but like, do they have pitchers? Do they have enough pitchers? They have some guys who can pitch, but I'm not feeling great about the way they're finishing. And so I think they're vulnerable. As much as I wanted to pick them to make a run because of their pitching, I don't see it right now. And so who do I like? I mean, I like the house money team. I like the Ole Miss Rebels, the second win, second life, preseason top 5 team that started to show flashes down the stretch of why they were that. A team that was in a super regional last year and has everybody back from that offense. And the pitching, it felt like, got better late. It's still not great pitching, but who's got great pitching? So, right. I mean, like we said, Arizona can also really swing the bats, but I'm going to take the Rebels to win this regional.
Kendall?
I like Miami. I think when you look at, Aaron brought up some good points with the pitching, but I still ride with those 2 weekend starters. And I also think when you look at, Miami, the real X factor they have is, if the game's close or they have a lead, they can kind of turn things over to that bullpen, which has been so good at times this year. And so, the thing about Ole Miss is like they played really well down the stretch. They played kind of lifeless in the one game in Hoover. Arizona's a team for me that, you've seen them a lot. When I saw them opening weekend, I'm thinking like, damn, they're really good. And they've kind of been up and down. But, I do think that first game, especially when you look at the Tim Elko, Kevin Graham, we talk about Ole Miss, Kevin Graham coming back from that injury has been the key for them. Like their offense has been a different unit since he came back. And when you look at Arizona, with Daniel Susac and my man Chase Davis, who absolutely destroys balls, it's going to be really interesting to see the offensive dynamic between those two teams. It wouldn't surprise me to see Arizona or Ole Miss win that regional, but I'm going to stick with Miami at home.
So Fitzy, before I make my pick, by the way, Andrew Walters' numbers, guys, are such a joke. Like 30 innings, he's given up 10 hits. 10 hits for the year. He's got
I'm saying.
5 walks and 57 strikeouts. It's just nuts.
It's absurd stuff too. Like
no,
it's like 97, 99 with it's ridiculous.
Yeah, fastball, here it comes. What are you gonna do about it? But here's the problem. Carson Ligon's ERA is like a runaway train right now. He's up at 4.5. In Charlotte, was he even their second starter, or have they deferred away from him?
He started one of their 2 games. I can't remember what order it was. I think it was Palmquist first and then Ligon. I mean, it wasn't great. It wasn't great. I don't have a lot of confidence in that one right now. I mean, they have other options, but Garland also is kind of struggling right now. His confidence, that'd be one other option for a start. It didn't seem like Gino's feeling great about that one either.
Well, here's my thing too, though, guys. Like we're talking about Miami and Carson Ligon, but do we feel any good about Ole Miss's weekend rotation outside of Dylan DeLucia? Do we feel very good about Arizona?
The Hunter Elliott kid is okay, right? Or
He's
is he just too young?
Average. He's average.
True freshman, is that right?
Yeah, he is true freshman.
And he's a left-hander. That's probably the left-hander is probably a good matchup for Miami. I mean, I'm kind of talking myself into it a little bit.
I'll tell you one thing about Ole Miss real quick that I actually have liked over the last couple of weeks when I've watched them play. Is some of their pieces out of the bullpen. Brandon Johnson's an electric arm out of the bullpen. The guy that I've really liked is Josh Mallitz. Like he's got nasty stuff, like really nasty stuff. And so I'm starting to feel a lot better about Ole Miss's bullpen. I almost kind of wonder if you're Mike Bianco, if you just hope that Hunter Elliott and Dylan DeLucia can just give you 4, and then you can kind of just turn the game over to your bullpen and just kind of piece everything together. Maybe that's the way to do it.
Yeah, I'll say this. You guys just talked me into Ole Miss. I really want to pick Miami, but Carson Ligon struggling. It feels like getting to Walters is problematic. Ole Miss with Kevin Graham just feels like a different team. It feels like just everything about that clubhouse changed when he came back. So give me the Rebs. And they got beat by Carter Holton in Hoover,
Yeah,
right?
Holton threw really well.
So that's kind of like just a bad.
It would be the most Ole Miss thing ever in a year that they want to get rid of Mike Bianco that they get to Omaha.
That's a
well
great
said.
point. Oh, that's a
Yes.
good point.
Kendall, take us to Hattiesburg. Southern Miss, the Black Knights of West Point, Kennesaw State, the Fighting Josh Hatchers, and LSU.
Well, first of all, let's start with Kennesaw State. Kudos to Ryan Coe for the job that staff has done in year one. Mike Sansing did a nice job there, but they got the super regional way back. When was it? 14 against
14,
Louisville on the road.
Yep.
But Kennesaw State, they've done a terrific job in his first year. I always like the coaches who kind of have the assistant coach scouting background. He's a former scout. I want to say the Rangers organization.
Yep, that's right.
And he's done a terrific job this year with that team. Josh Hatcher. Hey, Mississippi State's kind of like, hey, I wish we had Josh Hatcher this year. He won, ASUN tournament MVP. He's been terrific for them. I think the big key for me when I look at Southern Miss and I look at LSU, the big key for me with LSU, like I don't even want to talk about their pitching. I want to talk about the health of Cade Doty and Jacob Berry. This offense is totally different when those two guys aren't healthy, and they were missing those guys in Omaha. And their offense just lacks something without those two guys in the lineup, and rightfully so. You're talking about two likely first-round picks. And so I think that the health of those two guys going in this tournament probably means everything to me. I think Southern Miss, from a pitching standpoint, I've had people, I was on a Baton Rouge station earlier, hey, are these Southern Miss pitching numbers legit? Tell you what, they are legit. Like those are SEC caliber weekend guys. When you look at Tanner Hall, Hunter Riggins, Hurst, and Waldrop, those are three SEC caliber arms. And so Southern Miss over the weekend in the Conference USA tournament, there were a couple of games where they weren't very offensive, but I tell you what, they've got the deepest pitching staff in this field by far, and I think I like Southern Miss to probably win it.
Ooh, interesting. Fitzy?
I told you I've been looking for a team with pitching that I could ride here. I want it. Army.
Coach Foster, 4 straight regionals.
Coach Foster's a stud, man.
Yes, he is.
That guy is a stud. He was there at BC when they were at their peak.
16, super.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. He's awesome, and congratulations to Army on getting there 4 years in a row. Southern Miss has the staff that I want to ride. This is the one. They're going to Omaha with this staff because it's going to be awesome. Can you imagine Hattiesburg for an Ole Miss, Southern Miss Super? That's what we're going to have. I'm telling you right now.
It's going to be fun this weekend with LSU fans in there.
Absolutely. It's going to be awesome. I totally agree with Kendall. Like all those guys, I mean, first of all, Waldrop's a first-round pick. I mean, it's a huge arm for next year. But, I mean, Riggins and Hall, just bulldog competitors with movement and, spin the hell out of the slider. They got guys in the bullpen, Dalton Rogers, and it was Landon Harper. I mean, from the right side, like right and left, you can match up different ways. I love this pitching staff, and I love the experience in the lineup. The count, of course, Gabe Montenegro, the 18th year senior. Dustin Dickerson. They got a shortstop they could trust. You love that. The Count's brother, Rodrigo, behind the plate. He's been good. Having Reese Ewing back has been huge for him. Certainly missing some time there, but I mean, all these guys like Danny Lynch, Will McGillis, these guys have been around a lot. They've got guys that have real experience and they've got a real pitching staff. So as much as LSU can hit, I don't trust their pitching and defense. I do like Southern Miss's pitching and defense, and for me, it's got to be awesome atmosphere. Holy cow, that's going to be great.
Yep. By the way, Southern Miss ranks second nationally in Team ERA. Can I just go ahead and vote for Christian Ostrander for Assistant of the Year?
Boy, he's really good. Really good. You know what? I want to pick Southern Miss because it's not like, they hosted Mississippi State in 2017 and got beat, in that regional. So it's not like this is, overwhelming for Scott Berry and those guys. But I am going to pick LSU. My assumption is that Doty and Berry are healthy. I'm just rolling the dice on that. I think Jay Johnson and Jason Kelly have done a remarkable job just basically punting, starting pitching, and cobbling together a really competent bullpen. But you're right, guys, like they do not play catch at all. So that offense better show up.
That's interesting. I mean, the way you describe their pitching staff, it reminds me very much of like East Carolina and Oregon, other teams we talked about today. It's like, this is a common theme. I mean, the way to approach pitching now is totally different than it was even 5 years ago.
Yep.
Yeah. Well, the other thing too is, I was telling somebody today, LSU, it's kind of an orthodox approach to kind of piece things together like that. But, remember back in 2013 when Mississippi State got to Omaha and they literally, with Luis Polarena starting, they were literally like throwing him 2 innings and then turning it over to the bullpen the rest of the game. So there is a precedent of that a little bit.
That's interesting because there was a handsome and wise member of this panel who made that exact same comparison about an hour ago on the show.
60 minutes ago.
Awesome.
Yeah, that's
awesome. Right. But more recently, Jason Kelly, if you recall, when he managed his pitching staff at Washington, they did all kinds of funky things. Bringing guys out of the bullpen. Was it Joe Demers?
Joe Demers. I was thinking like the big thick sinker slider guy.
Yeah, and they would bring him in the third inning and let him just take it the rest of the way, sometimes. And they did a variety of things. GK not afraid to think outside the box.
Yeah, no, those guys are good. Hey, we got 2 more brackets. Kendall, let's give you the Auburn bracket. Auburn, Southeastern, hashtag line up, Florida State, UCLA. This is going to be
I think this is going to be an awesome regional. I think when you look at the first game with UCLA and Florida State, you look at Parker Messick and Max Ratchik. That's going to be an outstanding matchup. You look at, Parker Messick. It's kind of funny. Somebody mentioned something to me the other day about his overall record. That's the most deceiving thing ever because he's been excellent this year. When you look at the way the fastball jumps on hitters, he is the complete pitcher for FSU. Then you look at the job that Max has done for UCLA. The thing I liked about him is I was watching the start in the Pac-12 tournament. He's got a little fire to him. He is a hard-nosed dude. He will come right at you. So that's a great matchup. And then Auburn, I don't know what to expect, really completely. They didn't play very well in the one game in Hoover. So I'm curious to see if they kind of get back to normal. But, Auburn's one of those teams that they had some injuries down the stretch from a pitching standpoint. They should be a little healthier going into this regional, and that could kind of be the difference for them. When they started getting guys banged up on the mound, that's when they started, I wouldn't say go south, but they started to kind of scale back their level of play. So
who did they lose again, Kendall? They lost Hayden Mullins, was pitching in the one slot.
Well, he's out for the year, but I want to say Berghalter was banged up, I think.
That sounds right.
So they just had some guys banged up, but Hayden Mullins obviously is out for the year, and they've been a little different without him. But this is still a really offensive team. Sonny DeShera is obviously Sonny DeShera, one of the top power hitters in college baseball. Blake Rambish, the Republic of Texas native, has been awesome for them this year. So they're still pretty offensive.
Fitzy?
Yeah, it's you're right, Kendall. I mean, I think Auburn's really good. And it's one of the most surprising teams out there for me. I mean, it's not a team that I saw hosting a regional. I thought they had a chance to be good, but it's just even as Butch Thompson said in the fall, it's like a team with a wide range of outcomes. They can be really good or really bad, and they end up being pretty darn good. But I'll tell you, I don't know. I feel like the 3 and the 2 here are the strongest teams in this regional. Is that, am I getting ahead of myself here? I don't know, but
I'm about to get ahead of myself. So save room.
My question is, will Florida State hit enough?
Yeah. And it's Jekyll and Hyde. We've said that about a few teams here today, but they looked really good offensively against Virginia in the first game of the ACC tournament. And, and then it didn't carry over, but ultimately I got to trust Messick and Hubbard and Ross Dunn and Davis Hare and Wyatt Kroll, and they got one power arm after another, and plus they got your Jonas Scolaros of the world, these guys that just been around forever and have pitchability and funk, and it's so hard to find real pitching, and maybe it hasn't been as dominant as I thought it would be, those guys, but it's still guys that have experience and stuff and in command, generally speaking. I'm going to go with Florida State just based on the pitching here. And I think UCLA is very intriguing also. And Auburn's obviously really good. Maybe I'm looking past Southeastern Louisiana, but I'm going to stick with my guns. I've been saying Florida State all year long. I'm going to stick with them.
I'm going to go UCLA. Cody Schreier will be back. Sounds like Radjic didn't pitch in the Pac-12 tournament, and he's back. And UCLA put up 25 runs in a game in the Pac-12 tournament. Auburn has not hosted under Butch Thompson, have they? Even the 18 team won the NC State regional, and
they were North Carolina, weren't they?
Yeah, that's the super regional they won in 19. So I guess it doesn't matter. Let's not overthink this. I have a good feeling about UCLA. My thing on Florida State, guys, is you're hitting 260 and you're fielding 960, and Tyler Martin's not healthy, and he's the kind of, he's the heart of that lineup. So I just can't pick Florida State
Their
But this
defense is a problem. I
problem.
don't understand why. I mean, I thought we were better there, and we're not. We're not.
Yeah, so I'm gonna take UCLA. It's unconventional because they're so young, but yeah, give me the Bruins. Fitzy, take us to Corvallis, Oregon State, New Mexico State,
Yes.
San Diego, Bondi, Carter Holton, Enrique Bradfield.
Yeah. How about this? This is interesting. Oregon State and Vandy feels like repeatedly clashing in the postseason, whether it's in Corvallis, whether it's in Nashville. Have they met in Omaha? I can't remember. It feels
I can't
like maybe
remember,
they
but you're
have.
right. I forgot about that 2011 Super. That was
Yeah.
Oregon State that Vandy beat to go to Omaha the
That's
first
right.
time.
That's right. They, there's some history here, but I don't know. I mean, Vandy, it just doesn't feel. Certainly, it's clearly not a vintage Vandy team.
Mhm.
Kendall, I mean, I know you've been saying lately, like you sound like you're just not that impressed with him. I haven't seen him in a while.
I'm not impressed at all. I mean,
Yeah.
their body language in Hoover was not very good, and
Which
that's
is
not
wild
just
for Vandy.
yeah. I mean, for a while, really, and and I'm not the only one that noticed that. If you look at the kind of the clips on the SEC Network after the game was over and they lost, I mean, Corbs was just ripping them to shreds in the dugout, and rightfully so. Like they were playing lifeless baseball outside of Enrique Bradfield. So the question is, do they kind of flip a switch in a regional? They certainly have the talent. Carter Holton, as y'all mentioned a minute ago, was electric in his start. But the thing that I cannot figure out about Vandy guys is the times that I've seen Patrick Riley throw this year, his stuff is nasty. And what I'm waiting on is like, why doesn't he have a more significant role? Like he is nasty, and it just seems like he should have a larger role. Like if I'm Vandy, like he is my dude outside of Carter Holton.
Yeah.
Here's what's interesting, boys. So San Diego, who they'll play in the first game, has a left-hander, Bryson Motts,
Mm-hmm.
who has 124 strikeouts in 83 innings. So he's a lefty. So that's harder on Bradfield in theory. To me, Vandy, when they got going, it was Bradfield was just taking over games. And the Carter Holton thing can't be ignored. But to Oregon State's benefit, you got to throw Motts and Holton in the first game, right? I mean, I don't know how you would not do that if you're, Brock Ungrich and by the way, first-year head coach, first-year regional.
Oh.
Let's go.
How
Coach
about that?
Ungrich.
They can mash, by the way. I was talking with a West Coast scout about them the other day, and he was like, man, like, look out. These guys can really swing the bats. I mean, Caleb Brickett's had a huge year for him, and Chase Meadroth and Kevin Sam, Cody Jeffries. I mean, it's come on late for him. It's I don't know. I mean, I think that it doesn't feel like a great spot for them, though. Like you're going to a much more pitcher-friendly ballpark than you got down there in San Diego. I love Oregon State's team. I've talked about this a lot. I just think for me, they're right there with Tennessee for among the most complete teams in the country. I think they actually have pitching depth. I think they have elite strike throwing ability. They have elite defense. They lead the country. At least last time I checked, they led the country in both fewest walks allowed and fielding percentage. Love that combination. I love plus the fact they have some star power in the middle of their lineup, of course. With
Melton.
Justin Boyd and Jacob Melton. Thank you.
Yeah.
My brain is getting tired. And by the way, they have the best pitcher in the country in Cooper Jerpy. I'm going to say it. They got the dude at the front and they got guys behind them. I think they win this regional, and I think they go to Omaha. And
I will say this, guys. I do not pick against the Beavs in the postseason. And you remember the only time the Beavs didn't get to, didn't win their home regional, Michigan beat them. And what did Michigan do? They ended up playing for the national championship.
Yep. I'm picking the Beavs too. Now, Gavin Logan had a big collision in the Pac-12 tournament, apparently. So that's then they're going to be having to use Tanner Smith, the freshman, who's been fine.
I like him.
The big question is, do you pitch Cooper Jerpy off, or do you throw him against New Mexico State? I would save him for game
pitch
2.
Off.
If you can't beat New Mexico State with your number 2, you're probably not winning the regional video.
Yeah, that's where my head's at. But we'll see. Mitch Canham, it's only year 2 for him as a head coach in regional, so we don't really have a pattern for him yet. But yeah, I'm picking Oregon State. So there you go, boys. Kendall, Command Center, are you going to Austin? Where are you going? College Station?
I will be in College Station. My plan is if we have a Louisiana Texas game on Monday, maybe getting over there. But I've spent the last few years doing Austin regionals and Austin Super, so we got to mix it up a little bit.
Yeah, I like it. Fitzy, what are you doing? Chapel Hill? Blacksburg?
I'm going to Greenville actually.
Oh, love it.
Ooh,
Love it.
that'd be fun.
I didn't get a chance to see Coastal Carolina this spring, and I always see them, and I just missed them this year. I only saw, and I hadn't seen East Carolina since early, and so actually I've seen a lot of Virginia, but two teams that I haven't seen much of, and the Pirates, who are just a totally different team right now. So, and I think that's a wide open regional right now.
I love it. I will be in Bristol, Connecticut, doing squeeze play with Berkey and Chris Budden and Matt Schick, which will be super fun. And that's it. Here we go, boys. Here we go. I want to reiterate what Fitzy said. If you're watching us on YouTube, please subscribe. That's really helpful. Thanks again to our friends at S2 Cognition and Wilson, great friends of the podcast and sponsors of the podcast. And that is it. No more podcasts this week, right, boys? We will catch everyone next week on the flip side of regionals. Check the website. A lot of great stuff up there. And that's it. Have a great week. Enjoy.